What is up, guys? It is Mercules here. This is going to be the second of my new commentaries. It is a Friday night. I am stoked. I hope you guys are having a great Friday and you're ready for the weekend. And this gameplay is going to be some title update Team Headhunter on multi-team. I actually don't know what this gameplay is because I've only watched the first couple of minutes of it and I don't really do that well. But I saved it on my computer, so I must have had some reason for saving it. And it's listed in the gameplay section of my hard drive, so it's not for clips or anything like that, so I really am kind of excited to see. Maybe I do something really cool in this gameplay, or maybe, realistically, it's just terrible and I don't know why I saved it, but who cares? Let's move right on. What I want to talk about in today's commentary is something that has been bothering me a little bit since I've gone back into the Halo community, and I've actually seen how bad it is. And it's kind of, I want to, like, chronicle the decline of Halo as a multiplayer game. Because as you guys know, if you play Halo 4 right now, it is bad. It is pretty much a dead game. It is, you know, probably still one of the relatively more popular multiplayer games on Xbox Live. But that's because it's mostly dominated by a couple of games, Call of Duty and Battlefield, and probably hardly any others. Like, there aren't really that many multiplayer games to choose from, which is actually kind of funny when you think about it, that, you know, there's so few good multiplayer games to choose from. And, going back to the beginning of the decline of Halo, let's talk about when Halo was at its peak. I didn't play Halo 2, so I can't give you any information on that at all. The only thing I played on Halo 2 was local multiplayer every once in a while and the campaign. But when Halo 3 came out, that's when I feel like Halo really became like the mainstream, you know, multiplayer game. Like, if you were playing a first-person shooter on Xbox, you were probably playing Halo. Now, obviously, there were other games. There were the Battlefields, or the original Call of Duties back when it was World War II oriented. There were the Ghost Recons and the Rainbow Sixes, things like that. I myself played Ghost Recon. That was actually the first shooter I got into besides Halo. But Halo 3 was pretty much it. There really weren't that many other choices. If you wanted to play with a bunch of other people, you were going to be playing Halo 3. And then Call of Duty came out. The first Modern Warfare came out, Call of Duty 4. And that was a game changer. It was literally everything that Halo wasn't, meaning it was the exact opposite of Halo in every single way. Instead of taking a lot of tactics and skill and taking a very long time for people to die, you know, 4 shots with a gun, it took maybe 3 bullets with the weakest gun. And it was more of a twitch shooter. It was like a fast-paced run-and-gun type thing. And instead of there being power weapons, you just got to pick whatever weapon, and all the weapons were kind of balanced because, you know, some were better at long range, some were better at close range, some had faster rates of fire, some had slower rates of fire but more damage. Like, all the weapons were pretty much balanced. And that was just the way Call of Duty worked. Whereas, you know, in Halo, you didn't get to choose your weapon you start off with, and then on top of that, you went for power weapons and map control and stuff like that. There's still map control in Call of Duty, but it was just a completely different game. It was literally the exact opposite of Halo in every way. And it kind of split the population of Halo. I remember, I think the most people I ever saw in Halo had to have been over 1 million people, but I would easily see 800,000 people on Halo 3 online at like peak hours. And like the slowest hours ever, there'd still be like 120,000 people online, which is like pretty much reaches maximum. But anyways, and then Call of Duty 4 came out, and it pretty much cut the population of Halo 3 just like straight in. I would go online and see 400,000 people on either game at any given time, 500,000 people, 300,000 people. Sometimes it'd go up or down, depending on whether it was a holiday weekend or what time it was. But for the most part, it wasn't really a bad thing. Now people who didn't really like Halo 3 had another type of game that they could, man, my phone's blown up right now, sorry about that. That they could play if they didn't like Halo 3, and, you know, it added some variety to the type of multiplayer games you could play on Xbox Live. And that was the beginning of the decline of Halo. It wasn't really Halo's fault. It had nothing to do with Halo. It was just another game came out, and some people liked that game more. For the first time, there was, you know, another balanced multiplayer game that you could play. And then, I think we can all agree the real beginning of the end for Halo was when Halo Reach came out. And it's funny to me because when I look back on this, I think about the Halo Reach beta, and everybody I knew and everybody in the community was absolutely stoked with the beta. The beta just seemed like a really, really great thing. If I remember a couple of complaints that there were, that the entire community shared, it was before the beta came out, it was, oh god, there are going to be loadouts, oh no, there's going to be no 1 to 50 ranking system, oh no, there's going to be Bloom. Like, those were the main complaints that I heard, like, oh, they're making it just like Call of Duty. And they made it sound like they were making it just like Call of Duty, with the exception of the arena, which they actually took from StarCraft, based on the leagues and like things like that. But, those are the main complaints that I had. Then the beta came out, and it turned out Bloom wasn't really bad at all. It seemed to have almost the exact same timing to me as the VR from Halo 3. I actually had no problem with the Bloom. Then grenades became pretty overpowered. That seemed to be an issue that a lot of people had. And, you know, the armor abilities, which I didn't think were going to be an issue, armor lock started to become an issue, invisibility was kind of an issue with kids camping with it. And I seem to remember everybody who was in the beta, you know, making those little forms out to Bungie, telling them what issues they were having. And I thought for sure they were going to fix all that stuff in the beta, and I thought grenades weren't going to be as overpowered. They were probably not going to use invisibility and armor lock, and they were probably going to do something with the ranking system. But anyways, Arena seemed fine to me when it was in the beta. I had an enjoyable time playing. I thought they were going to add more playlists. They just never ended up doing that. What ended up happening is the actual game came out and they did something. I know the bloom timing was technically the same, but they did something to it to make it different. I'm not sure what it was, but it was different than it was in the beta. It seemed like it slowed the game down. It seemed like the bloom in the beta was, you know, not really important. Like, you could still pull the trigger with the same regular trigger pull that you're used to, and it didn't really do anything. And then it seemed like you actually had to slow down and wait to pull the trigger in the actual game. And that was unfortunate because it slowed down the pace of the game. They, you know, nerfed grenades a little bit, but not too much, and that was kind of rage-inducing for a lot of people. And then on top of that, they didn't get rid of armor lock, which slowed down the game even more. They didn't get rid of invisibility, which was, you know, led to invisibility campers and even slowed down the game even more. And it seemed like what ended up happening with Halo Reach is that they actually slowed down the game even more compared to Call of Duty. Like, Halo 3 was relatively a simple game, and it wasn't fast-paced necessarily compared to Call of Duty, which is literally a twitch shooter, but it was still pretty fast-paced. You could kill people quickly in Halo 3. And Halo Reach, you still could to a certain extent, but it took longer. It took a much longer time, and it slowed the game down a drastic amount. And that was, I think, something that people didn't really like. So the way it looks, and this is unfortunate because I love Bungie, and I don't ever want to say anything ill of Bungie, and I don't know how much of the stuff they put into the game because Microsoft told them they had to while they were still under contract with them, or because they were trying to compete with Call of Duty, but it seems like they just actually kind of messed the game up. They pretty drastically altered the way gameplay was played in Halo Reach. And for me, for the most part, it was still fine. I adapted to the new game. I liked it. Obviously, if it had been me, I would have left Bloom the way it was in beta, or I would have done something like what the title update did to it at the beginning. It seemed like it slowed the game down way too much in the early game, and I think that kind of by itself probably drove a lot of people off. And then on top of that, armor lock being allowed in the game at all was extremely unfortunate. They could have done just fine with the little drop shield thing. They really didn't need armor lock. I understand that it was to stop, you know, vehicles from running people over, but I don't know. To me, it just seemed like you could have only put it in big team. There were so many things they could have done to fix it. I mean, they could have made armor abilities to where they were only, you started with sprint, everybody started with sprint, and you had to pick up an armor ability or something like that. Like, they could have done any number of things to make it better, to make it easier, and to make it not quite so rage-inducing. But to me, Halo Reach still wasn't even really a bad game. I mean, it's still pulling over 100,000 people. You know, now at this point in time, it was pretty much 600, 700,000 people, sometimes 800,000 people on Call of Duty, and at most, 200,000 people on Halo Reach, most of the time around 120. And that was unfortunate, but that was really the beginning of the real end for Halo as a franchise, is that there were just so many drastic changes, and it almost didn't really feel like Bungie, it felt like they kind of stopped listening to the community a little bit. Like, there weren't any really good DLC maps, there wasn't even really anything like that, it was just a whole bunch of Forge maps, and it got kind of boring after a while, and it just stopped being really, really fun, unfortunately, for a lot of people. I still enjoyed it, but then Halo 4 came out. And I'm not going to have time to talk about Halo 4 this commentary, but Halo 4 made a lot of mistakes, and I want to go over them all kind of in-depth next commentary. By the way, look at that stick. That stick right there is incredible. And then the double kill, and the invincible, so 35 kill spree, and then the triple kill, and picking up some skulls and running in for the win. So that's it for this commentary, guys. I'm going to go out and have a good time. It's Friday night. I suggest you guys do the same. If you can't, play some video games and have a good time. Remember to like, favorite, and subscribe for more.